thank you very much for joining, everyone. So my talk today is going to be on defence as a team sport. No, really. I'll kind of explain what we'll be talking about as we go through it. Really loved Rob's talk. There's going to be so many kind of themes that I'm going to reference his talk a lot because all the points he was making I fully agree with. And hopefully you can kind of see how we're going to apply these to real-world cyber readiness. So first, just a bit of an introduction as to who I am. So I'm Jenny Lamb. I specialise in cyber readiness and exercising. I've had about over 10 years in the industry. I am a Lancaster Uni alumni, so it's really nice to be back here. I've sort of put my timeline, my life, my career in logos. So in 2011, started at Lancaster University. Got into cybersecurity by joining a module that I really wasn't supposed to be on. I don't know how I got through the system. And they showed a video of Stuxnet, and I was there like, how is this possible? How is it possible that there is a virus or code that can change physical output and create like that physical danger? So that's what started the journey. Started doing like a placement year. I joined the Northwest Cybersecurity Cluster at the time, supporting that, and we'll talk about that later, and we'll do a little plug for the workshop that we've got later on. Moved into security operations, so went to a managed services company to do that security monitoring, that initial investigation. Tried a little bit of security engineering as well, just trying to explore different areas and avenues of the cybersecurity industry. I sort of got to a point where I realised I really, really just don't like staring at a command line for the entire day. I do enjoy speaking to people, helping people. So I started thinking about what is my next step. Around 2017, something happened to a company, and all of a sudden they have got an increased security budget and they are looking for a cyber exercising specialist. So I joined Maersk in 2019, and if you don't know who Maersk are, they are a global shipping company that were hit by NotPetya back in 2017 quite badly. So that was great. They're working for a company with a big security budget who understood, really wanted to mature their journey, and did a lot of exercising and readiness across quite a large global complex company. Ended up leading that team for a few years, and then fast forward to kind of roughly today, I currently am a cyber resilience advisor for Immersive. So do a lot of exercising and readiness programs with customers and all sorts of weird and wonderful industries, like from postal services to electric vehicles to trains to gas. It's all strange, but not very useful for pub quizzes. Currently as well, I came back to the Northwest Cybersecurity Cluster, so I'm the ambassador for Liverpool and Chester. We are going to be running a workshop later today, so please come check that out on behalf of the cluster. But you're probably thinking, okay, readiness, sure, team sport, but what is the sport element? What gives me a right to kind of talk about this? So back, again, started in Lancaster University, I used to play Ultimate Frisbee. Has anyone heard of Ultimate Frisbee? Show of hands. Hey, that's really good. Okay, a few years ago, I would have had a completely silent room. So it was a hobby sport, but got eventually quite good at it. And in 2018, through the club that I was playing with at the time, we managed to qualify for the World Championships in Ohio. So it became a lot more intense, a lot more training, and it's an amateur sport. So it was all self-funded. It's obviously quite a niche sport. But there was still intense training, weekend camps, a lot of talk around social sports psychology, talking about how do we enhance our performance. So we did quite well. We were one of 3 teams in the mixed division to represent GB. And then in 2019, I also made the GB women's team for sort of beach frisbee. So I don't think we did very well. I was trying to not mention that, but it still counts. I got the t-shirt. So like I said, I'm not a sports... just to mention as well, basically I found a lot of it was a lot of pressure on yourself, and that leads to a lot of sadness. So a lot of pressure, a lot of doubting yourself, a lot of thinking, how can I be better? Why am I not performing? Why am I not doing well here? And that just leads to a lot of sadness. But I would like to say I am not a qualified psychologist, but what I am going to talk to you today is the similarities that I see across my two worlds. So in the cyber readiness space, in the exercising space, I work with a lot of security operations centres, a lot of middle management or silver team, right the way through to executives as well. So we look at the full end-to-end response. How do they communicate? What are the processes like? But I generally prefer and specialise working with security operations centres, looking at that technical exercising. how do you take that really focused concentration you need for your technical investigations, trawling through logs, trawling through alerts, correlating them, piecing together that timeline? How do you take that and translate it to something that the rest of the business kind of can talk about? And as again, something Rob mentioned in his talk as well about being something that is really key to the industry that we work in. So I'm not a qualified psychologist. Back in my Frisbee days, we did a lot of talks and I just had a personal interest in it. So this is just like loose reading, but I noticed there was a lot of themes that actually you could apply to the cyber world, the readiness world, and to be honest, anything in life. So as we go through today, we're going to look at 3 common sports psychology principles. There were so many avenues we could have gone down, but I picked out my top 3-ish. I sort of pulled one together, as you'll see shortly. And we'll start to see how they can apply to cyber readiness. But as we go through this, I would like you to kind of think of an example in your world, in your mind, to kind of use as we go along. So think about a time in your life when you had to train or practice for something, when you're training and you're doing something in preparation for something that you need to perform. So whether that be an exam, so you're revising, you're essentially training your brain and your knowledge to prepare yourself for an exam, to perform in that exam. Maybe you play a musical instrument, or maybe you work in the security operations team, so you are doing preparedness stuff and you're doing your upskilling and preparing yourself for if the real incident happens. Or maybe just into gaming, there's like a boss battle or something that you just cannot get past and you go back and you kind of try and practice and get through it. So there's tons of examples you can use in your day-to-day life. If you've got something cyber related, great, but have that in mind and we might pick some examples as we go through. So with that, let's dive straight into the first principle. So this is probably my favorite one that I learned kind of reading about sports psychology is process versus the outcome. So this is about your mental focus. And again, the principles we're going to cover will focus the individual kind of aspect, but it may as well span into the team aspect. If you're a manager, these are things as well that you need to consider for your teams. But for this one, this is a very individual focused mindset. So when you are calm, perhaps you're training for something and there's no pressure, you are taking it easy, you're in a good flow state. So you're not worried about anything and you are fully focused on the process. And by that, I mean what tasks you have to do, the techniques you're using to do this. So if I just come back to my Frisbee days, a lot of it was about, how do you throw the disc? There's a lot of technique and making sure that you're accurate in your throwing. In terms of this kind of way you run and the paths that you take as well. You're very focused on the actions, the focus goals of what I need to do. You're very grounded. I think a golf example is a good one about your swing technique. And you are controlling the controllable. You're not worried about anything else. You're just in your moment. And this is where you perform really well. Now, when you start thinking about the outcome, this is when you start thinking about factors that are beyond your control. So you start thinking about things that are not related to what you're doing, your process, your technique. So you start thinking about, okay, well, we are 3-0 down. There's 15 minutes left on the clock. We need to get this goal. When you start thinking about it, you start feeling that pressure. That is taking up your brain space. Even if it's a subconscious thought, and you can see my very rudimentary basic diagram here, it's still going to take up space and kind of clog your thoughts and clog your brain. You may be thinking, if I hit the shot, I'm going to look amazing in front of the cameras. I hope there's a camera watching me. Again, something unrelated. It's out of your control and it's kind of taking up that brain space. So thinking about, are you winning? You may argue if you're winning in a competition scenario or a competitive scenario that surely that's in your control because you're competing. Well, if you really break down the factors, you are controlling your performance, your team's performance perhaps, but you can't control the weather. You don't control how well the other team is prepared or what they're going through. You don't control any external factors. So you can only control what you can do. So sometimes when you look at things saying, are we winning or losing? It's not just a simple case of you control that. There's a lot of external factors there. But you can see that starts to kind of clog, the brain starts to distract you. And the principle behind this is kind of bringing that focus back down to what can you control, ignoring those ignoring the external factors and bringing the focus into your control. So kind of to summarize on that principle, the outcome is about thinking about the results, thinking about the external, the end state. What is it you're trying to achieve? And that involves thinking about factors beyond your control. The process is focusing on the specific actions that you need to perform in that moment. Now, bringing this into cyber readiness. So let's picture the scene. You are a security operations center analyst. You are dealing with a major incident. So there is a lot going on. People are stressing around. You have your dashboard. You've got your logs that you're trawling through. You're trying to figure out what is happening, what is going on. There's going to be a lot of noise. If you're focusing on the process or getting worried about the process, then you'll start thinking, we can't let this breach get any worse. This is awful. Like, I need to get a hold of this now. Is the CISO going to be angry at us? Is my boss going to be angry at us? What are other people thinking? And you may be hitting a dead end with your investigation. So you may be thinking, I've been trawling these logs for hours and hours. I just can't get anywhere. I can't find anything. And you're starting to get frustrated, which is a key sign that you are focusing on the outcome. Instead, the principle here is to start practicing bringing that focus back. So ignoring those factors and thinking about what do you need to do to achieve the best result that you want? What is the expectation and what is your responsibility? So in a cyber readiness context, in a incident response context, you have a literal process. I'm not sure when sports psychology were kind of inventing this principle, that they would think that the process meant a literal document. But in the cyber world, we have process documentation. So ensuring you're following that, making sure that's up to date. So follow the process and what is expected. And it's why we do exercises. It's why it's important to know what you need to do. What's the procedure for containment? What stage are you at? What do you need to do next? So again, bringing that focus back to the tasks that you need to do. If you're worried about the CISO being angry with us, okay, we'll bring that back to the process. Document your findings, send regular updates. Communication is so important in incident response and crisis management. And again, we'll come back to that shortly. If you're getting frustrated because you're hitting a dead end with your investigation, pivot your search, take a break, just take a step back, try something new. So again, focus on the process of what other options have you not tried? Are there other search parameters that you haven't tried? So try a different avenue, try a different hypothesis if that isn't working. So hopefully that illustrates kind of bringing the focus back to your process. And again, come back to your example that you thought of earlier. Think of a time where you were practicing. Maybe you're playing with a musical instrument and you're getting really, really frustrated because it wasn't sounding how you wanted it to. Take that back to, okay, well, if you focus on the process, focus on your technique. Was it your breathing or was it your posture that might be affecting it? So with your example, think about a time where you perhaps were focused on the outcome, you were getting worried or frustrated, and how could you have brought that back to the process? If anyone's got any good examples, quick show of hands. If not, I will move on. Awesome. So, second principle, confidence building. So this one is a big one that I see in security. And Rob, when you mentioned in your talk as well about that imposter syndrome, everywhere. Like, there's so many people, and I imagine a lot of people here who never feel they're technical enough, or they're just not technical. And the amount of times I've been in a conversation where someone will about to, interject with a really good idea, but they'll say, oh, I'm not technical, but, and then they'll come out with this amazing idea. And it's like, why are you devaluing your input just by saying you're not technical? So a lot of that, again, this is a whole other talk and topic of conversation of how do we address that. But a core thing of this as well is about confidence. So cybersecurity, there's a lot to learn, the technical domain of what you need to know. I mean, even that list in Rob's talk earlier about all the different aspects and roles that are involved in cybersecurity is broad. We cannot expect everyone to know this, but I think that brings a level of feeling daunted that you don't know stuff. So there's a big element of building confidence. And again, this is from a very individual perspective, but something that can be kind of honed and spread across the team. Now, there is a cycle for this of how do you build confidence, and none of this is going to be like an instant quick win. It's not going to be you do this and suddenly you're amazingly confident. This will be something that you do over time, and the more you actively do it, suddenly in the future, you'll take a step back and be like, I actually feel quite good about this. So it's a slow, active thing that you have to build over time. But the cycle is essentially think positively, which sounds very I don't want to be toxically positive, but it's about turning those thoughts into something a bit more tangible, a bit more optimistic, a bit more positive about yourself. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, thinking, actually, I've got a good shot, I'm going to try this and I'm going to give it a go. Then you take action or take a risk, as some other kind of sources will kind of say. This is where if there's something that you are not comfortable with, you kind of take the risk. You put yourself out there, take a bit of a personal risk. Now, that's not saying you go out and just do everything you want and do sort of risky behavior. It's more about what is uncomfortable for you, pushing that boundary a little bit and taking that risk. And when you do take that risk and you take that chance, sometimes you'll experience success. Hopefully, a lot of the times you'll experience success. And when you do that, it's important to reinforce that with thinking positively. So thinking, you know what? That wasn't too bad. That was really positive. And you build that again. You push that boundary out a bit. And that's how you slowly build that confidence over time. Now, that was a sports psychology principle. For me, it was, I know this sounds really stupid, in Frisbee, it was sometimes just catching the disc. So there would be a time where I think I got a clear run for someone to do a really good shot to pass me a disc, but I'd be too scared to go and make that run because I'd be worried I was going to drop it, which is silly given the whole sport is about throwing and catching. But to I've got to think positively. How many times have I caught the disc really well, and not dropped it? And then next time I have the opportunity, taking that risk, going to kind of take that action. And when I experience success, kind of reminding myself of, yes, I can do it. I've proven to myself I can do it, and you continue to prove to yourself. So, bringing that context to cyber readiness. And again, this is a common example I see in security operations centers. When you're doing security SOC incident response, you will have multiple teams. You may have a group of people, 2 or 3 people that are on shift together, who are doing that initial investigation. So there'll be multiple people in conference bridges. You may have a lead person. So in this scenario that I'm thinking of specifically, there was one individual who was very shy, very quiet, and they had found something unusual. And they were kind of suspicious about something that they'd found, which they weren't sure if it was related to the wider investigation that was going on. So they were worried. So in this example here, they were saying, I won't interrupt this incident meeting. There's a lot of senior people on this. I can't be interrupting the VP of cyber operations with my finding. I'm probably wrong, and it's a false positive. You can probably see how harmful that is. If someone has found something, and in that incident scenario, you need them to speak up. You need them to share that information. So if you were this person, how would that person build up that confidence? So the thinking positively aspect is not just about, yeah, you can do it. It's kind of making it a bit more tangible. So even if it is a false positive, then they're still ruling it out. It might save time. And my technical observation is still a valid piece of the puzzle. So again, spinning that to be something a bit more positive and encouraging. The risk in this situation for that individual is to take that risk and just share their suspicions. So to speak out in that uncomfortable environment for them. For other people, this might be not even a decision if they're really comfortable speaking out on calls. But for them, this might be the most scariest thing that they've had to do all day. So they take that risk and they share that finding in the meeting. And they experience success. So they overcame their hesitation and they spoke up, and the world didn't end. They survived. So the team, maybe it was a real finding, maybe it was a false positive, but the team now know it is a false positive and can discard it. So you're now more integrated with the flow of that incident. And again, that cycles back to the positive thinking of, you know what, that was fine, I contributed, we know now for a fact that that wasn't a false positive. So this is a really common scenario we see in security operations centers. And again, coming back to Rob's point about communication in cybersecurity, this is why we need to start seeing all the techies and stuff, and everyone's got different personalities and different skill sets, but making a situation and making an environment where everyone can feel comfortable speaking up and can share the information is so important, and something that we always stress with customers when they're looking at their incident response. So again, come back to your example. When was there a time where you weren't sure, you were lacking confidence in something? And think about, how would you build that confidence? What can you kind of think positively about how you've done something before? What risk would you take for you to build that confidence and experience success? So, principle 3. So this one, not really a principle, but it was kind of like a whole bunch of them bundled together. Foster your roster. So this is more about the team aspect. So we've covered a lot, 2 quite individual mental focuses. This one is about how do you bring that together as a team. So you probably have noticed a lot in your in the world of work, there's a lot of leadership training that talks about how to build a great team, how to kind of foster that team environment. So there's a couple of examples that I've brought to this about kind of bringing your team together. And again, there's so many avenues we could go down and rabbit holes, but just to call out a couple. So mission and culture. This defines who you are as a team. How many of you have heard the story of the NASA cleaner? When we're talking about mission and culture, it's probably a really commonly used one in the industry, where someone asked the cleaner, was going around asking people, "What do you do?" Who works for NASA, and then they said to the cleaner, "What is it you do?" And the cleaner says, "I help build a spaceship." So it's that mission, it's the identity of no matter what you do, you are contributing to that wider goal, to that higher mission of the purpose and the company. So it's important to have this because this defines who you are as a team and it sets the why. So some companies, this might be really easy to set, and some organizations, it's really obvious. If you work for the NHS, for example, I'm pretty sure your goal will be about protecting the people and saving lives. So it's easier for some perhaps, but everything we do, and I'm fairly sure everyone who's in this industry wants to do it to protect the industry, protect the vulnerable people from being exploited by attackers. So defining what that mission and culture is really important. And it's important for leaders as well to lead by example and inspire those. So again, whole rabbit hole of leadership stuff we're not going to go down, but that is something to kind of call out. From the sports psychology side of things, if anyone's into rugby, the New Zealand All Blacks are one of the best rugby teams in the world. In one of the books written by Dan Carter, who is again known as one of the greatest All Blacks, he talks about the mission and the culture that was the All Blacks team. So their culture was you leave the jersey in a better place than when you found it, essentially. So everyone that came in, they understood the history of the team, and they understood that they need to leave the team in a better place than when they first got there. And that is what has contributed, amongst many things, contributed to such a successful culture and successful performance culture with that sporting team. So you think about that with your security operations team. It might not even be a security operations team. It might just be your team in response to readiness of what you do. If you want to optimize that performance, think about the why. Make sure everyone understands the why of what they are doing. Secondly is roles. So making sure people have clear roles and responsibilities. This sounds really, really dull, but it's kind of an important one to have. So again, you think about a sports team, you will have people that have different positions, different responsibilities on the field. In football, you have attackers, you have defenders, you have midfielders. So all different roles, different responsibilities, and you need to make sure that that team is balanced. So a team of all-star strikers is pretty useless. Like, you need to have balanced team doing different roles, covering different aspects. And you need to give your team depth as well. Just because you've got a full roster of a team, what happens if someone is ill or they're not available? You need to make sure you have other people that can take those roles, and you don't have any dependencies on certain people. And the last one is personalities. So we're going to get a bit blunt here, but people are people. We all have different personalities. People will get on. People will have massive egos in the room. I'm sure we've all worked with people where you thought, okay, you can check your ego a little bit there. But everyone's got one. I've got one. The most humble person in the world has probably got one. So it's just about managing those egos, encouraging, again, that team, the team behavior. What is the team behavior you want to encourage? Rewarding that, making it clear. And again, that ties back to your mission and your culture of what is it you want to achieve. And if we come back to that example of that security operations center analyst who didn't want to speak up because they were worried about being wrong or they were really afraid, have you created a team culture to make it safe for that person to do so? And you're rewarding the behavior to say, okay, yes, you've spoken up. Thank you so much. That was really great. Do that again. Maybe you're wrong this time, but it's fine. So again, think about that team culture and team behavior. So this one, perhaps your example might be a bit more difficult. If you have a team-based example where you work, you're doing this with other people, you can hopefully kind of see how that works. And basically, a team is a team. So a sports team will have exactly the same principles as your response team or your team in whatever organization that you work from. And hopefully you can see from this how key it is to have a strong leader that helps direct, helps promote these cultures, helps set the mission and the culture as well. So, with that, it's kind of all the principles really. So a quick summary. We've kind of talked about the first principle, which was that process versus the outcome. So this is about building that mental focus during when times get really busy, really stressful. There's a lot of noise, a lot of distraction. How can you train your brain to kind of keep the focus on the process and not the outcome? And when you're doing this, and if you're going to kind of take this away and do this at home, the key indicator that you are kind of starting to think about the outcome and focus too much on the outcome is that frustration. And if you're feeling frustrated, that may be because you're focusing a little bit on the outcome. It's all about controlling the controllable. Principle 2 is about the confidence cycle. So confidence is actively built. Sometimes it happens over time, but if you actively build it, you will find soon enough you'll get to a point when you're like, hey, actually, you know what? I'm pretty good at this. Celebrating successes is key. As you remember that cycle about thinking positively, it's not just about that, yeah, this is great, but you have to kind of acknowledge what you did well and acknowledge when you experience success and push the boundaries of your comfort. And principle 3 is more about the team. So foster your roster. Every individual will contribute to that team environment. Hopefully there's some key takeaways you can bring back to your team. Like I said, there's so many avenues we could go down, and probably each of these is a whole separate talk in itself. But you need to create that team environment to, again, help with the other 2 principles. But it's about creating a high performance culture. And leaving egos at the door, which is probably easier said than done for all of us, including myself. I would like to add one thing though as well. Obviously, with all of this is about improving performance. If you don't have the fundamental, the knowledge and skills that you need to do the job, focus on them first. So again, come back to my Frisbee example. I could be all well and good, kind of building up my confidence, trying to focus on the process and outcome. But if I can't throw the disc to begin with, there's no point. So make sure, thinking about what it is you want to focus on. What is your goal? What do you want to be good at? Thinking about the base skills, the base knowledge, what is it you need, and gearing yourself up and training yourself up on that. And as you start to hone your strengths and hone your skills, start bringing these principles in. So that is just something I want to add. And with that, it should hopefully lead to some happiness. And you should start feeling a bit more positive and confident in what you're doing. So thank you very much. Just a quick plug as well. I mean, how long have we got? 5 minutes. Okay, so it'd be good. We've got 5 minutes. If you've got any examples you want to share and the thoughts going through this, quick plug before we do that. I'm part of the Northwest Cybersecurity Cluster. We are going to be running a kind of community war game event. It's going to be very discussion based. You can kind of come and see how cyber response isn't just about security operation centers and not just about techies. It's a whole organization. Should be chaotic. It'll be great fun. So please come along to that. It's at 11:30 today, I think. But I think we've got 5 minutes left. If you need to go. But does anyone have any questions or any kind of thoughts that they had and examples that they want to share as we were going through it?
So, brilliant. The example I'm going to use is one that shows the value of a principle rather than an example of me doing it well. It's the confidence cycle, principle 2. I know when I'm stressed, I narrow down my thinking and I don't take the decision I need to take. And it's amazing how quickly that cycle that you put up breaks down when I'm stressed.
Yeah.
So I don't take the action, I don't make the decision, I don't then recognise that I made the progress and it didn't matter almost whether I made the decision or not. I just need to take a step forward, which then reinforces it. And it's such a strong cycle to remind yourself of when you're in those situations going, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So. And it's easy, isn't it, when you're stressed to kind of revert to the safe space, to what you know, which is kind of, if I equate that to like cyber incident response, it's why processes and documentation is a good fallback as well, to be like, there's too much going on, I don't know what I'm doing, have I just got everything that I need, like the fundamentals? But yeah, it's a good point of how easy it breaks down when you're stressed and you're distracted. Yeah. Anyone else? No? If not? Oh, go on.
Sorry, I'm asking another question.
Go on.
What I really like about these principles and these is it's, again, they're soft and fluffy on top of the do your skills. So again, celebrate successes, constantly take risks, create the right team environment, team dynamics. You can go through the process of an exercise, you can go through the process of a drill without bringing these in. Or you can bring these in to get maximum value from the activity you're doing as well. So. Exactly. So there's a level, and there's someone's journey, isn't it? When you're looking at either your own personal development journey, as cheesy as that sounds, or your organizational journey, kind of looking at, do you have the basics, and then how do you build on that basics? I think we always say, like, target our weaknesses and hone the strengths. And it's like, we all know how to target our weaknesses, but how do you hone the strengths? So again, this is something that you can do to kind of hone those strengths and make them even better. It's something I try to kind of encourage, especially amongst like security operations center, because there's so much of this is applicable for when you're staring at a screen for hours on end, trying to figure out what's going on. Have we got any like red teamers or people who do like offensive security? If you're doing the CTF later, at the back.
a lot of people, I know, love doing those CTFs because it's the problem-solving aspect. It's you're there, you're trying to crack a puzzle. When that frustration starts getting in because you've been trying to crack it for hours, that's probably when you're starting to think, why haven't I got this yet? I'm starting to get really frustrated. Like, what am I doing wrong? What can I be trying? So again, bring that thought back to what techniques haven't you tried? What could you try next? So there's so many things applicable here to the sort of technical world as well as the business world. So everyone, life, sports, hobbies, everything. Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, David.